Hi, welcome to StoryHive On Location, Kelowna. I'm Robb, and we are live in Creston with another inspiring episode brought to you with support by TELUS STORYHIve. We are back talking with Richard Reeves, the creative mind behind the Creston Valley Film Society, and he is an award-winning animator and filmmaker, and we're going to dive a little more into his process, his history, and the magic that he does create. So I want to thank you for having us here.
Yeah,
and
good to be here.
So who are you and where are you from?
My name is Richard, and where I'm from is really difficult in a way because I don't consider any place too much like where I'm from, really, because I was born in England, grew up in Nova Scotia, moved to Ontario with my parents, and went to school at several different places there. Eventually moved to Banff and Canmore area, spent the most time there, 17 years probably. Moved to the West Coast for 7 years and moved to Creston and somewhere in there in Calgary for a few years too. But I've been here for like 17 years, so it's just, maybe it's equaling now Canmore.
That's awesome. What initially got you into being an animator and filmmaker?
I always liked flip books. And I remember as a kid, you could get them at the store sometimes, and I would draw my own during class down the side of my geography textbook or whatever, and doing little abstract shapes and just watching. The teacher thinks you're actually working on something, but not what you're supposed to be doing. And but later on, then in high school, we had a darkroom, so I got introduced to actual film. Like it was at grade 7 actually, and this is a thing about how people, I think, can be influenced by people like guest artists and things that come into a classroom. We had our local camera guy, Cliff Maxwell. He had the camera store in town. In grade 7, he came to our class. He brought a 35mm still camera, one roll of film, showed us how to load the film, had everyone in the class take one picture, and then he took the film out in a black bag and processed it with the chemistry right in front of us and pulled the film out and showed us the negative. And we were just jaw dropped. It was like, wow, it's like magic. Like, how did that happen, right? And that was it. I went and bought a little Instamatic 126 point and shoot camera, a cheap thing. I wanted to be a nature photographer. So my friend and I, we were like going out trying to get pictures of birds, and the birds were so small in the picture you didn't even see them. So we actually broke into our zoo at an afternoon when it was closed and trying to get pictures, and we got chased by geese. And never actually did that again. But so then some years later, I bought a Nikon 35mm camera, and my brother had one, so we were taking pictures, and we had purchased 2 slide projectors with this cross-dissolve unit. That was sort of the beginning, because what we started doing was putting these still cameras on tripods, going out at night, and doing long exposures with flashlights and electronic flashes and putting colored gels in front of the lenses. The camera never moved, and the trees never moved, but the subjects would move, and then we could synchronize those with 2 slide projectors to music. So we were doing these slideshows. Some of them were just nature, and then some of them were quite getting into the surreal kind of, with these night lights and things. Eventually, with those, and we were shooting Kodachrome, just roll after roll after roll, and I wanted the pictures to move faster, but the machine, the slide projectors, can only go so fast. I have to drop a slide down and then pop it up and advance one, and so there's a maximum rate that they can project those images. And this is early 80s. And so I started to research where, and this is living in Banff at the time in Canmore, where can you get animation supplies? And I found in Calgary there was a store called Chromacolor. They're a British supplier for animation supplies located in Calgary. It was like the only one in Canada. And so I phoned them and said, do you have supplies for, what I was looking for animation? Yeah, we have all that. And then they're like, do you know that there's this animation society that's just been started called Quick Draw Animation Society? And I'm like, no, I had no idea, right? So they're like, oh, well, we're having a meeting on, the first Monday of the month or whatever, and you're welcome to come. So I drove in, I met the people, I signed up for a workshop, and then that's how it started to go with the animation part of the film. And like back then it was Bolex cameras, that's what they had. So we're shooting 16 millimeter film. We did a lot of exercises. My mentor was showing us like plasticine, cell animation, paint on glass, all these different techniques that you could do. And one day he showed us drawing on film. And right there I thought, this is it. This is what I can do in my studio at home. So I bought an old wooden ironing board. That was my work surface. And underneath I had mounted reels so that the film could come out of one reel, go across the table and roll up on another. And I just started working on the 16 millimeter film directly. And the cool thing is, so I sort of realized you don't need a lab or film processing. You can draw on the film, put it in a projector, instant animation, right? Like it's just like, it's right away you're watching what you just drew on a screen. And so yeah, the first film I made was it was kind of a bit of an experiment, a test to see what things stuck to the film or whatever. And after I was done, I had copied it to VHS tape, and a local television company had dropped by Quick Draw to see if there was any films they could put onto their a local Calgary station there. And they liked this film, so they phoned me and said, what's this film called? Like, there was no title or credits on it or anything. And as I'm looking around the room, I had a can of garbanzo beans that had paintbrushes in it. So I said, the film's called Garbanzo. And they said, oh, awesome. So can we use it? And they said they needed it in 3 weeks. So that gave me just enough time to put credit at the beginning of the film, Garbanzo. I couldn't even write the whole word in one frame. So I could get 3 letters. So I did the Garbanzo. And so that part has no sound because the sound had already been done. I used a bongo drum, a guitar with 1 string, and a clarinet. And I was inspired by this crazy radical jazz group with their saxophones and things. So it's a really kind of wild, free improvised jazz soundtrack. And then anyway, they projected it, and they gave each of us $10 for the screening fee. And I wrote this big letter, thanks, man, I'm going to reinvest my $10 into some film stock and all this. I was like, wow, I got paid for it. This is amazing. Never thought that would happen. So, but anyway, what did happen was at Quick Draw we had critiques for people's work. So I showed this Garbanzo film, and people are like, yeah, it's interesting, but there's shapes happening and they're colliding, and there's no sound to go with that. So that was the critique, and I thought, okay, then I'm going to start doing this drawing on sound film that I'd heard about. It goes back to 1930s, roughly when sound film was invented, talking pictures. And then there was different artists like Oscar Fischinger and of course Norman McLaren at the Film Board probably did some of the most advanced research into drawing on film sounds, optical sound. So I wrote the Film Board a letter and said there's nowhere in the library, internet didn't exist, right? So there's nowhere in the library to get any information on how to do this. And this producer there, Donald McWilliams, he sent me a great big package with all this stuff he'd photocopied from McLaren's notes and things. So I was like, gold, right? So this information is, to me, I still actually have it from all those years ago. And that inspired me then to first do what McLaren and Evelyn Lambert were working on, that kind of soundtrack, drawing with ink, scratching into the film emulsion to make sounds. And after a while, so I thought, McLaren has left us this alphabet in a way, this language, and it's up to us then to make words and poetry from it. So I started to find what else can make sounds, right? At the time I was working for Parks in Alberta, Kananaskis country. I was their sign technician, and I had access to graphic tapes for silkscreen. So I'm doing all the campground maps and things like that. And I used graphic tapes, they're just black and white, that would go into the sign after as a pattern, like a boundary or whatever. And I'm like, these are the same width as the optical sound stripe. So I was sticking them on film and listening to those, and they made these pure tones, like synthesizer sounds and stuff. And I just kept going from there with like researching what else can make sounds, fingerprints and all kinds of stuff can make sound, any repetitive pattern. Yeah, so just kept going, making those sounds. To this day, I'm still looking for like new things to make sounds.
When you're creating a sound specifically for maybe a part in your film or just a segment of it, and you're like trying to create that sound, but only specific things, or can everything make a sound technically to be written
I
in?
guess technically everything could make a sound. The things that work really the best are, of course, black and white. The optical reader doesn't differentiate with color at all. Some sound, there's two kinds. There's variable frequency sounds, which are like how many lines there are between the marks or whatever, or space, how much space between the marks. And then there's variable density, and that's like how much light goes through the actual sound shape. So like if I tried using magic marker, black magic marker, it's not opaque enough so light goes through. So those sounds are soft. Softer sounds, and it's all like a lot of it's trial and error. I use different black inks. The more opaque the sound, the more bright and crisp or loud the volume, and you can control all those aspects of the sound, like the tonality, the attack rate, the decay rate, the pitch and the frequency, and all that's all easy to do. It's very visual. Like small little dots make quiet sounds. Large dots make loud sounds, so it's kind of visual that way.
It's so mind-blowing because like working with music and being able to produce music, but looking at it on a digital workspace versus seeing it almost in like Morse code. That's kind of how I'm picking it up in my brain, is like to create the sound, it's basically you're creating the densities and different widths and how thick they are, how frequent they are, and those is what's creating the sounds.
Yeah.
That's so mind-blowing to me, because I'm so used to watching just like putting the notes into place and like having to turn up the volume and the attack and all that, and just being able to just mouse click 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 click, to think that you had to draw it. And then so would specific lines, how do we phrase this, do specific lines and thicknesses like create, this is where it gets confusing, like the tones. So like if you're saying like I want to have like an explosion sound, would that be like a thick black spot?
Yeah, especially an explosion would be, the attack rate would be very sudden, so the line intersecting where the beam of light is coming through on the optical reader would be very horizontal with that beam, so it just enters and it's a boom sound, and you can have it fade out. I've done ocean. I wanted to get ocean wave sounds, like so it's crashing, and then and those were made just by scratching the film. I'd scratch out a big area where the wave crashed, like almost like an explosion, and then fade it out by hand, just by less and less lines, and the duration, 24 frames per second. So you know, if you want a wave that's like 3 seconds, like of, you got to do 72 frames to make 3 seconds, 96 for 4, and things like that. And yeah, so you can control the duration of the sound as well.
What was the hardest challenge to overcome while learning the process?
I don't think I've come to, like, it's still always a challenge. Every film, you know, always try to look for something new in each film, try to do something different. Yeah, The challenge nowadays is just the time it takes to get film processed, because there are only 2 labs in Canada, where before they were everywhere, so it's taking longer to get work back from the lab and stay in the flow of the creative flow that you're in. Like when you send it away, then, I got downtime. So yeah, that's more of a challenge. But trying to come up with some original new ideas. For a while, I was teaching a lot of workshops all over the place, and I realized that this is good at showing everyone how to do these films. Now everyone can make films that are like mine, and only their own style, right? But I thought, I got to come up with something that you can't do in a workshop, So it occurred to me, like the time of processing, but to make, I draw on an orange film stock. It's internegative. So it's like when people would shoot with your still camera and then you'd send it to the film lab to get your roll of film back. You always got the negatives back. Mm-hmm. So basically I do a handmade negative, and then it has to go to the lab to get printed. And then that print comes back. That print is now the new original. I draw into that print, and the internegatives just go off to the side. What's cool with that technique is you can airbrush onto the orange film. And so say you airbrushed orange, yellow ink, and it goes to the lab. It comes back with airbrush. It's all particles. It represents like grain, like film grain. And those particles are now the opposite color that they were. So if they were orangey yellow, they're now blue cyan colors on a black background. There's no other way you can get that technique without using, because the only other 2 film stocks are totally clear. So you can spray the paint on that, and then you get a white background, which is really hard to look at because it's so bright on the screen. And then black film, which you can't spray paint onto because it's just already opaque, right? So that was a breakthrough, and I came up with that idea for making visuals that are a little bit inaccessible for, like day-to-day kind of things. So yeah, that, and it also made the colors really bright too, because they are on that black background, so the colors really pop on the screen.
So in your process of learning things, what has been one of your favorite moments or projects that you've put out?
One of my favorite projects was a commission from the Toronto Animated Image Society some years back. They chose 11 animators from across Canada to each represent one of the Painters 11. So the Painters 11 were a group based in the Toronto area of 1950s, these really abstract painters. And they were not met very well. Like they showed their work at the Eaton Centre in downtown Toronto, and people broke the windows and said, "This is not art, this is crazy painter stuff." And they were into automatic painting, just like painting on the spur of the moment, and super abstract. So anyway, we were each assigned one of these artists, and I was assigned Walter Yarwood. And so I found out, I had to do a bit of research on his background and found out he was the only of one of the 11 that did sculpture. So I thought, okay, and these are like super radical painters, right? So I thought, okay, how can I incorporate sculpture into a cameraless film? So I made stamps, my own handmade carve. I used a Dremel tool, carved into the erasers to make the rubber stamp. And I used his imagery from his sculptures, which were inspired by rotting cedar trees and things like this, like really abstract things. And his paintings, just the outline. So I thought I would stamp those images, those really shrunken down to 35 millimeter postage stamp size things. But as I was doing it, they weren't looking anything at all like his work. And then I thought, well, it doesn't have to, because it's representational from that. It started off, the stamps looked kind of like the sculptures a little, and I'm dipping it in bleach and sticking it on the film and burning the image frame by frame, and I could control fade outs by just not dipping it anymore, and the bleach would get weaker and weaker and just turn back to a black frame. And so when I started that project, I thought radical, I threw out everything I'd learned, everything I knew about how to make these films, and just went at it from a fresh approach. I just felt like I'd made enough images, like it was all feeling kind of, and expression of the timing of the film and things like that, right? So when it was done, I thought, now it needs a soundtrack. So most of the people actually for the project used 1950s jazz music. So during especially the later part of the 50s was a lot of free jazz, improvised and spontaneous music, and it was wild, right? And I thought, okay, but I thought that's just adding a sound that's already been made. I thought I'm going to use these handmade sounds to make something. So I was doing heartbeats. I thought the heartbeat of the rhythm. I put Morse code, like you were mentioning Morse code a while ago. I put Morse code into the film, and I was like, doot, 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 doot. And it's not really synchronizing to the images at all. I didn't care about that because it's radical, right? And the Morse code reads over and over, this film is dedicated to Walter Yarwood. Over and over, this pattern went. After about 2 or 3 times of the doot-doot-doot sounds, I got tired of that sound and started switching the sound for the same pattern, but it was like, like just really odd. And yeah, I thought, well, that's pretty radical. So we presented these films at the Art Gallery of Ontario in Toronto, live, and then we're all there, and this audience is there. And so afterwards, this guy comes up to me and goes, "Hi, my name is Walter Yarwood Jr." Like because his dad was the painter who's been passed on, right? And I'm just thinking in myself, I don't know, right? What's he thinking, right? And he goes, "My dad would have really liked your film," right? It's like, oh, that's good, because I could have gone the other way, right? And yeah, and it's funny because those films went around and kept getting good reviews, and I'm like, well, if it's really radical, we should get some bad reviews somewhere, right? And finally, in Winnipeg, my film got a bad review, and I was like, finally.
In Winnipeg, that's so funny. As the process throughout time, and we kind of talked about it earlier with the technology constantly evolving, is there a point where you think you would ever try and go digital with it?
Well, I sort of am, I suppose, by using this drawing tablet. It's totally digital. It's an electronic pen. Yeah, and I've spent hours learning it and experimenting with it. It is fun. I've tried tablets when they first came out, those Wacom ones, and then your tablet's here and your computer screen is here, so you're drawing here on the screen, but you're looking at the screen, so it's a disconnect kind of. So now with these modern drawing tablets, you're actually drawing right on the image. Yeah, it's pretty interesting how. So I've been downloading brushes and things I like to try and get an organic look to it, so it doesn't look so plastic or digital, and create something that looks a bit organic with the digital medium. I have only just done little tests and things, and like very short 10-second kind of clips of experiments and things like rotoscoping and animating a countdown leader, just like little exercises to get some idea what this thing can do. But
yeah, it's pretty astonishing what you can do with basic animation, and then you touch like programs like Blender.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like I tried to learn Blender myself with no animation prior, besides like claymation and stuff in school. But when you accomplish building something in there, you're like, yes, I did it.
Yeah,
Even if it's 5 seconds long, because it's not easy, and that's a whole other skill set to learn on top of it.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's a way to mix the digital with the actual film.
I kind of tried. I've actually, because my films are digitized in the end, I loaded them into the drawing program, and I just don't know what I'm doing. I'm not sure. You have effects like warp and twist, and you can color channel and all those, and none of it really excites me that much. For the sound, I think there's more opportunity for digital. But for the image, I'm just not sure, for the paint on film anyway, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I actually haven't found something that I still just do all my images for all the films are still pure in that sense of, but I'm not a purist in the sense that I do use a computer for composition with the sound. So I was a purist, but not anymore.
And that's why I think I enjoy is that you adapt to the things that you want, but that authentic feel of what you do visually is always going to remain.
Yeah, I mean, I try to keep the audio, especially even though it's digitized, to a limit of, for a long time, 3 soundtracks, which a Steam Deck can do. You can run the film forward and backwards, that a Steam Deck can do that. And even Norman McLaren back in the day added a little bit of echo or reverb to his soundtracks but before they had much else that was probably just through a tube amp or something. Just to open the sound up a little bit, it really helps. You can go stereo. All these sounds are mono, and but you can actually put 2 tracks of mono, the same sound, and then open it, pan left and right. So you're doing those little kind of after things. A lot of the sound effects, I try some of them and things and just go, well, I don't know. I do like to keep the integrity of the original sound. So when I say to somebody, this is the sound of a tree rings or something, that it actually still sounds like if they were to go and get tree rings and run it through an optical reader, it would sound like the way, yes, that's what I heard, but not take it apart too much, really. I don't know. Or remix them that way. Although I've had artists take my soundtracks and remix them, and then they're totally not sounding like the original. Like I wouldn't have recognized it if I didn't know myself, right? So it's interesting when other people take your work and then do a remix version of it and then send it back, right? And it's like, whoa, I never thought of that. But
if there was any advice you would give an aspiring animator or filmmaker who is wanting to start a career or to follow their dream, what piece of advice do you think would help them start that career?
Yeah, especially following your dream. I think that's a big one there. Just, never lose sight of the fun doing it. I get caught up in my head sometimes with problems, and then I just have to go right back to the beginning. Why did I start doing this? Because it was fun. And don't give up. I mean, send your films out, finish your film, and then even though you think you finished the film, that's just the beginning, because you have to send it out to the market or whatever, to the festivals. Don't be discouraged by rejection letters. I get tons of them, and I've had some really nice ones, actually. It's like not a beautiful rejection letter, but it's just all part of it. You'll maybe learn, I suppose, and apply for grants, because there is funding available. It's getting, of course, harder and harder with the amount of people nowadays applying for grants and things, but it's never give up. A grant application can go in, and if you get a rejection, always just look at it and if you can get feedback. But if not, you can look at it and go, maybe change something, you can make it better for the next time, but never just say, I quit, after one rejection or something like that. Just, it can make you stronger. It might even lead you into sort of like the punk rock of animation, and go against the grain and try these experiments. There's this whole world for experimental film that is still being, people are still doing work towards. There's the visual music and things like that. So with abstract film, and I don't know, that's the world I kind of lean towards. So it's not a lot of money doing it. It's something you don't do for money, that's for sure. This is like, it's more just to, see what you can do, see what happens. You will meet other people in that realm that inspire and see unusual things. That I always go back to thinking that when film was invented, there were no rules. They just invented film. Someone invented the camera, and then it was like, what are we going to do with this, right? And so there are no rules, really, if you think about it that way. These rules, these artificial rules have been imposed upon us. What script writing is, and but having said that, so that's all very important too, right?
No, it is true.
But just to remember that there is that original side of it where there was no rules before. So, yeah. And maybe that can help people write scripts differently too, you know, where scripting can get formulated. And I've seen with documentary films, like there's this formula kind of for whatever the documentary is. It seems kind of like a template that people are following. And maybe it's time, you know, people could actually like stretch those to different something, you know, like there's always room for change by going back to the thought that there was no rules in the first place.
Well, I want to thank you. This has been an absolutely incredible conversation again. And
I'm glad you're here.
And if you guys would like to be on the show, there will be a QR code at the bottom of the screen that you can scan, and it'll take you to a form to fill out, and we will be in touch. Once again, I'm Robb O'Day, and from all of us at Story Hive, thank you, and we will see you next time.
Thanks.